Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Selectmen meeting for July 19th, 2023. Mr. Pinio, do we have a need for non-public this evening?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. We have 4 items under RSA 91A, 3 Roman numeral 2, lowercase c 1 reputation, and lowercase e 3 pending litigation.
Thank you. Before we start on with our agenda here, I have a statement I want to read from the Board of Selectmen here. The July 11th, 2023 meeting of the Wolfeboro Planning Board, the Planning Board issued conditions of approval for the Hunters Shop and Save. Condition number 5 states, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall obtain a special exception for expansion up to, but not to exceed 25% of the original building footprint unless otherwise relieved of such condition by a finding of municipal estoppel by either the Board of Selectmen or a court of law. On Thursday, July 13th, 2023, under New Hampshire RSA 91-A:2, 1B, the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen met in a non-meeting with legal counsel to discuss the Board of Selectmen's authority to grant municipal estoppel as outlined in Condition 5 of the Wolfeboro Planning Board. Town Council writes, the Board of Selectmen can use the doctrine of municipal immunity to decline to enforce the unambiguous provisions of the ordinance. The doctrine of municipal estoppel is generally considered to be a defensive doctrine that property owners or taxpayers may use against the town or city to avoid some change in interpretation or enforcement by a municipality. The New Hampshire Supreme Court stated in Sutton versus Town of Guilford, 160 NH 43 in 2010, a municipal estoppel claim requires a showing that a party has been induced to rely upon the misrepresentation to his or her injury. 1D at 721, the reliance upon the misrepresentation must be reasonable. 1D at 722, reliance is unreasonable when the party asserting estoppel at the time of his or her reliance or at the time of the representation or concealment knew or should have known that the conduct or representation was improper, materially incorrect, or misleading. In the Guilford case, the court concluded that a property owner's reliance on an agreement with the town and certain representations made by the town was unreasonable because the property owner knew or should have known that the representations made by town officials were materially incorrect and thus any reliance was unreasonable. The New Hampshire Supreme Court observed that a review of the ordinance, as the trial court found, would have revealed that Section 911 was still in effect and applicable to the property. See Thomas 153 NH at 722. Reliance on erroneous information by town code enforcement officer and a planning board member is unreasonable where a statute squarely addresses the issue. Similarly, here a court would likely conclude that any reliance by hunters on an alleged misrepresentation by town officials was unreasonable when the plain language of the ordinance precluded that the proposed modifications to the site plan. Even if the Board of Selectmen were inclined to take a vote that municipal estoppel applies or that it will not enforce the strict conditions of the ordinance, a third party could appeal that decision. It would likely prevail based on the Guilford precedent because the ordinance is unambiguous and directly contradicts the interpretation allegedly provided by town officials. As a result, I would advise the Board of Selectmen not to grant the request and instead direct the applicant to file an appropriate application for relief from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Therefore, the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will not grant municipal estoppel as outlined in Condition 5 of the Wolfeboro Planning Board. Hunters Shop and Save will seek approval for the special exception by Wolfeboro Zoning Board of Adjustment on July 31st, 2023 at 7 p.m. right here in the Great Hall. Okay. On our agenda, next we have some minutes to approve. First set of minutes from June 28th. Do board members have any comments or corrections?
Brad, I do.
Yes.
On page 9, the 14th line, it should be said, not send. And on page 10, line 9, it should say ping, not pink.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to accept the June 28th minutes as amended.
Second.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Brian. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes of July 6th.
I'll make a motion to accept the July 6th minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Brian. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so public hearings. First one, the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 7th, 2023 at approximately 6:30 p.m. in the Wolfeboro Town Hall, Great Hall at 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, to consider the application received from Jason and Renee Walsh for a building permit on Class 6 portion of New Garden Road, specifically tax map 255, Lot 3. You'd like to come up and
All right, I'd like to explain this in three parts. First,
just start by stating your name,
oh,
just for the
sorry.
record.
My name is Jason Walsh.
Thank you.
So I'd like to explain this in three parts. One, the Class 6 road part, the road width, and the bridge. For anyone that was not here at the last month's meeting, we're looking to build a 20 by 24 addition to our camp, just a bathroom, flushing, toilet, running water, electricity. We received the written reports that you have reviewed prior to this meeting. The reason why we are here is because of 67441, which is to prevent scattered and premature growth. As you look at the facts, sorry, this might need to come a little closer. If you look at the facts, this is not scattered and premature growth. Grab this. The cabin is already on the property. Thank you. It has been there for a long time, since the 50s. There are already 5 houses on the Class 6 road, including a year-round home about a half a mile past us. One of these 5 houses was approved to build approximately 6 years ago. There are already 2 driveways on the property. There is already a cleared lot. There are already electricity poles on the road running past the house. Everything is there and has been for a long time. It is not scattered in premature growth. We are just looking to work on and improve our cabin that is already there. We are not looking to build from scratch. It will not affect open land use. Number 2, the road width. There was a concern brought up last month regarding the road width. In Chief Zadi's report, he mentioned that the road is wide enough for a fire truck. So it's pretty wide. This should be done case by case, as we know on Class 6 roads. But New Garden Road is wider than the Class 6 portions of both Trask Mountain and North Line Road. Excuse me. We did go to these locations and measured. We actually have some pictures here, but in the last 18 months, the town of Wolfeboro approved the building permits on 2 of these Class 6 roads. Trask Mountain, which was approved about 8 months ago, has a gate with bars on it that measures less than 12 feet wide. So I don't think that road width is a concern. And both of these properties needed driveway permits. We don't need a driveway permit. Trask Mountain also needed 2 electrical poles installed. We do not, but as you know, it's case by case. So number 3, the bridge. As you know, per the Quantum report, the bridge is not rated for a fire truck. There are risks involved. Chief Zadi mentioned that, in a way, the same is true with island homes in the town of Wolfeboro. I'm not sure if it would reach, but the cabin is approximately 500 feet from the other side of the bridge. The river runs year-round. Water from the river could be used. I'm not sure if that is feasible or not. But the bottom line is the safest thing for us and our children would be to obtain an approval by the town of Wolfeboro for a building permit. In many ways, we need running water to fight our own fires, need a permit for a well. We need electricity to hardwire smoke alarms, need a permit to wire the cabin. We are there quite a bit, and this would really help us and our family. At this time, we are not looking to live there year-round. We just want a safe place to enjoy the trails and the woods with our family. Any questions?
Not right now. What I would do next here is we're going to open the public hearing for people in the audience who would like to speak and ask questions, and you also have an opportunity to respond. So I'll open up the public hearing. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this event? Suzanne, rather?
Yeah, Suzanne Ryan. I think I've exhausted all the things that I could say about this over the years about Class 6 roads. My concern is premature and scattered growth, not following along with the master plan, and the cumulative effect over the years by allowing these bit by bit, taking a bite of the apple, keep spreading out and out and out and out. Won't be in my lifetime, but I think the town will come to regret it. So I would ask that you vote no.
Anyone else in the audience wish to come up and speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Board members, any questions or comments on this? Linda?
Yeah, I have a couple. First of all, before I get started, I want to make it clear to the audience, which comes up all the time, I own, and my husband and I own, no property on New Garden Road in the town of Wolfeboro. I started out with the concern of the bridge, and I still have a concern with the bridge. I will read from Tom Zotti's memorandum to the Board of Selectmen. It says, as for a statewide policy, that again is a decision of the Board of Selectmen. As an emergency response professional, I am loath to allow a life safety hazard to which we knowingly could not adequately respond in emergency. So I will not support it because of that. The reason I brought up the width of the road, you are signing a waiver that says you're going to maintain a 12-foot wide road with 4-foot shoulders. They're not 4-foot shoulders. If we're going to sign this, I'd like to make it 16 feet wide, and now reference to a shoulder isn't there. And I think that's something we need to do as a Board of Selectmen if you so choose to move forward on it. I would like to answer whether this is going to have heat or not. Okay.
We do need to come up to the mic to respond back, if you would, please.
The answer is yes. We have a wood stove currently, and we're trying to look into forced hot water or forced hot air.
The reason I asked that, we did that on another Class 6 road, and the guy didn't realize he had to have heat, so I wanted to make sure you didn't get caught in that same.
Absolutely.
So my main issue here is, and my other issue is the master plan says no permits on a Class 6 road, but the bridge is the one that I can't overlook.
Yeah, when I went through, looked at all the information here, we found, and looking into this after the last meeting, we did find a bridge rating had been done on this bridge here. I believe the town had it done on this one and the one up on North Wakefield Road. And looking at it, the steel beams underneath it seem to be decent. The beam inventory rating of 18 tons and the operating rating of 26 tons. It's the wooden deck that is very deficient, rating of 3 tons and 4 tons for inventory rating and an operating rating. That being said, in my opinion, that is a fairly easy fix for the neighborhood, the neighbors down in there, the lot owners and the folks that live in there could easily, redeck the bridge there because the structure itself is in good shape for their access and their, just for their peace of mind getting in and out and stuff like that. That wouldn't be that big of a job. I did want to bring up too that when these applicants came to the planning board back, I can't remember the date now, but planning board discussed it to give the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and they had a vote of approving this concept down there by a vote of 4 in favor, 1 against, and 2 abstentions, mine being one of the abstentions because I knew I would be hearing it at this level here, so that's why I abstained at the planning board level. So I'm of the mind that, these folks have a piece of property that there is a building on it now, a structure on it. And I really think people have the right to develop their property, to live in, to, have a home on it and stuff. So with the waivers that they understand, they would be signing, as far as understanding that the fire rescue will not be sending, the big apparatuses in there. And, things like that, they'd have to figure out for oil deliveries, how you're going to do that and stuff with the bridge if you end up fixing it or whatever, would be on you guys. So that's kind of my point of view on it. And so I would be, personally, I'm in favor of granting this application to have these folks, remodel or redo the house and make it a year-round home for themselves. Any other board members?
So, Brad, I agree with you in that I think the bridge should be rebuilt, but I think that the bridge being rebuilt should be a condition of approval. Because we as a town, and we've heard this from our town attorney, we are liable if a third-party individual goes over the bridge and the bridge collapses and there's an issue and an injury, the waivers do not cover the town. That has been told to us by our town attorney. So they can sign the waivers that takes and protects us from damage from themselves, but not from third parties. I would approve this knowing that the bridge was being brought up to a more reasonable standard. 4 tons is a pickup truck. How do you pour cement, build a house, carry in lumber, get oil, have a fire truck come over, even a small one, if the largest vehicle you can get across is a pickup truck? And our master plan does say that we should not grant permits on Class 6 roads. Now, that being said, I believe also, like you, that people should have a right to use their property. But I'm pretty firm on a condition that the bridge needs to be addressed and rebuilt to be not a substandard bridge that could cause a liability issue for a third party that falls on the town.
Luke?
If there hadn't been a structure there, I'd have a hard time approving it. I kind of agree with you, Brad. I think that property owners have rights, and there is a structure on the property, and the owners want to make the structure, more habitable for them so they can use it. They're paying property taxes on it. Life is not without risk. And, back in the day, people used to cross bridges and not even know a rating on them. Not that I agree with unnecessary risk, but, I think to an extent we have to look at in the future, if we, as Suzanne stated, the sporadic spread, either the selectmen's going to take a position on this and say going forward, we're not going to do it. We issued a couple in the last couple of years. Either we're not going to do it or, but, when you have another applicant coming and we did issue one, 6-7 months ago, I'd have a hard time. This one even makes more sense because there is a structure there for me, and I wouldn't put that condition on. I'm sure, they're going to want the bridge to be safe and functional, and the rest of the residents that live beyond that, the other resident that lives beyond that would want the bridge safe and functional. There's risk associated with building on a Class 6 road. And I think the applicant is fully aware of that. And when we go through all the conditions as we read these through to approve this, it mentions all those things. So I will be supporting it.
Dave?
Yeah, I agree that with some of what they said, but in particular, that there is an existing building there. And I think if they redeck it, certainly that would bring it up to the 18,000 pounds probably that the steel can handle. It certainly is a better situation. I really don't think that if there were a problem down there that the fire department or police department wouldn't figure a way to get some equipment in there to at least help out. So I would be in favor of issuing the permit.
One other thing, too, I didn't mention when I was speaking, was that the infrastructure that would be needed in there is already in place along that Class 6 road over the bridge here, mainly being the power grid is already in place. So that being said, are there any other comments from the board? Would somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the building permit on the Class 6 road for Jason and Rena Walsh on New Garden Road.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Dave, seconded by Luke. Is there any other discussion? Call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 3 yeses, 2 noes, so you're all set. Okay. Next public hearing. We have the community development block grant application. Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold 3 consecutive public hearings on Wednesday, July 19th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. in the Great Hall, Town Hall, Wolfeboro at 84 South Main Street. Community Development Block Grant, the CDBG funds are available to municipalities through the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Up to $500,000 annually is available for economic development projects, up to $500,000 for housing projects, up to $500,000 for public facility projects, up to $350,000 for emergency funds, up to $25,000 per planning study grant. All projects must directly benefit a majority of low and moderate income persons. Public hearings will comment on the following. The first one is, this is a proposed application to the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $500,000 in CDBG housing grant funds. Of the funds, up to $25,000 will be retained by the town for administrative labor compliance costs associated with the project. $475,000 of the funds will be subgranted to Lakes Region community developers or a related entity to be determined toward the acquisition and/or construction of 30 affordable housing units at Harriman Hill on Beck Drive. Number 2, the anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for the Harriman Hill project. And number 3, the housing and community development plan.
Brad, I'm going to step down. This is still before the zoning board, and we're still going through the approval process. So I'm going to step down from this.
And I'll just poll the board quickly here too, being the fact that I was an abutting property owner to this at one time. I have since sold the property a year and a half or more ago. So if the board feels comfortable having me sit on this case, I feel very comfortable to have an objective mind on this. So I'll poll the board to see what their opinion is.
Fine with me.
Yeah, it's fine with me. We're accepting money to move a project forward, and I don't see that you have a
Nothing you're gonna-
conflict with that.
I'm okay.
It's a done deal.
Okay? I
I'm
just want
okay.
to put it out there, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Donna Lane. I'm a CDBG consultant, Community Development Block Grant, and you just kind of took my thunder and read my whole thing. But I wanted to say, first of all, there are informational packets available over there on the table. And so is the first public hearing open?
I haven't opened the public hearings yet. I don't know if you wanted to read a statement about it
Well,
first.
that was the statement. You pretty much read.
What I read,
So
okay.
if you could open the first one, I'll read that paragraph again, and
Okay.
then we can
I will now
comment.
open the public hearing for the first portion of this one.
Okay, so this is the proposed application to the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $500,000 in CDBG housing grant funds. Of the grant funds, up to $25,000 will be retained by the town for administrative labor compliance costs associated with the project. $475,000 of the funds will be subgranted to Lakes Region community developers or a related entity to be determined toward the acquisition and/or construction of 30 affordable housing units at Harriman Hill on Beck Drive. This project conforms with Wolfeboro's proposed housing and community development plan's goal of encourage a varied stock of safe, sanitary, decent, and affordable housing for persons of all age and income groups. Do the selectmen have any questions on the project?
Okay,
Why
is there-
not?
Well, we'll do the audience first, if we could, Brian, then we'll have our part. Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments on this phase of the public hearing? Okay, seeing none there, we'll ask the board if they have any questions, comments. Brian?
Why not condos? Why rentals? Is it because it helps Lakes Region Development Corp. For their business model to have more rentals so they have a revenue stream so they can continue building rentals? Or is there another reason why they'd be adverse to having condos where people can purchase them and pay them off? They have a fixed cost so that in 10 years their cost of ownership goes down and they pass on generational wealth to their children and their heirs. I had a statement that I kind of didn't agree with that said there's no demand or need for condos in the state of New Hampshire. And that was at the last board meeting we had. I think that's baloney. And I think looking for the right funding sources and looking towards people that rent that would like to own, I think it's a good model.
So can I answer
Yes.
that? And I'm not speaking for Lakes Region community developers. I do a lot of CDBG throughout the state. And CDBGs are grant funds that are through HUD, and they're for low and moderate income, primarily low and moderate income housing. New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority is usually the primary funder of these projects. These projects are many millions of dollars, and they're primary. And these funds are targeted for low and moderate income folks, and so they have to be affordable. And I believe that the model would not make a condo situation affordable.
Doesn't make
It's the
sense.
funding source.
Doesn't make sense to me.
It's-
My first house was New Hampshire Housing Finance backed with FHA with a 2-point buy down. I have a son who just bought a house in town,
Can we-
0% down.
Stay on track here
Yeah.
for what we're talking about.
We
So-
are. This is on track, Brad. Are you listening? This is on track. It is possible to get a loan for a low-income person and purchase an inexpensive or less expensive condo or house. I just don't agree.
The board members, any questions or comments? Okay, so at this time, I'll close the public hearing on this section, and I'll open up the public hearing on number 2, which is the anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for Harriman Hill, correct?
Correct.
So,
Okay.
Public hearing is open.
Okay, this plan outlines measures under the Uniform Relocation Act required for CDBG projects that involve any displacement or relocation of persons or businesses. If the town were to undertake a CDBG project, and I want to point that out, a CDBG project, this isn't talking about anything else you do, okay, that involve displacement or relocation, they would follow this plan. The plan outlines measures that they would take to find comparable, suitable housing for persons or businesses displaced or relocated. This is new construction. We have no displacement or relocation. It's not going to happen here. But if you recall, I know you've seen me doing CDBG before, it's project specific, has to be adopted every single time we ask for CDBG funds. Basically, if we do anything with CDBG funds that displaces or relocates, we have to follow the Uniform Relocation Act. You've adopted this in the past every time you've asked for CDBG. Any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you. Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Board members? None? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. The next one is I'll open up the public hearing on the Housing and Community Development Plan.
So you have to have a housing and community development plan to ask for CDBG funds. It can't be any more than 3 years old. Yours is quite old. And you have to be addressing a goal that's outlined in this plan. So I can't remember the last time you had one. It was many, many years ago. So I've just taken the goals from that one and updated into the new format they're using now. So a housing and community development plan is required to be eligible to apply for CDBG funds. The proposed housing and community development plan identifies needs which currently exist or are anticipated during the next 3 years. The plan provides a basis for guiding the town's housing and community development objectives and actions. In addition, the plan includes a citizen participation plan for CDBG that details the CDBG requirements at public hearings. So these are the goals, excuse me, these are the goals you had before, same goals going back into the new plan, okay? So, goal, encourage a varied stock of safe, sanitary, decent, affordable housing for persons of all age and income groups. Encourage economic development activities to increase quality industrial and commercial development. Encourage the expansion and retention of employment opportunities for residents. Encourage municipal and private water and wastewater systems that are safe, sanitary, and that meet DES regulations. Preserve and promote the town's historically and culturally significant structures. Promote activities that protect the health and safety of residents and visitors. Nice goals. Nothing too specific, just nice goals that every town has. Any questions?
Okay. Public, is there anybody in the audience that has any questions or comments on this one? Board members? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. So now we will be voting on these grant applications here. So does somebody want to read the motions here?
I'll do the first one. I move to approve the submittal of the CDBG application and to vote to authorize the town manager to sign and submit the CDBG application, and upon approval of the CDBG application, authorize the town manager to execute any documents which may be necessary to effectuate the CDBG contract and any amendments thereto.
Second.
We have a motion by Linda, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
And one abstention. Okay. The next vote. Somebody want to read that one?
Yeah, I make a motion to adopt the anti-displacement and relocation assessment plan.
Second.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Dave. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. One more to go.
Yeah, I move to adopt the housing and community development plan.
Second.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Dave. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention.
No, I was an aye.
Oh, okay. I didn't look it down in time. Thanks, Brian. Okay. We're all set. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda, temporary event permit. Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen to consider a temporary event permit for Back Bay water skiers doing business as Abenaki Water Ski Club to host 3 water ski tournaments at the town park off Railroad Ave in Back Bay on June 24th, 2023, the New Hampshire Open, July 21st, kids only, July 22nd to 23rd, 2023, the Lakes Region Open, and August 19th, 2023, the New Hampshire Water Ski Championship from 8 a.m. to sunset, permit number 2023-54. So we're just adding dates basically to what was, we'd already approved some of these events here, and they're adding some dates to extend out one of the events here. So I'll open up a public hearing if anybody has any questions on this. We have nobody online for this, correct, Mr. Neal? Okay, thank you. Close the public hearing. Board members, any comments, questions?
Move to update the temporary event permit previously approved to include July 21st, 8 a.m. to sunset.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Luke. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that one's all set. Next on our agenda is a bulk vote. We have 3 weekly manifests. Manifest of June 30th of $3,035,658, which included a school payment. July 7th manifest was about $500. And July 14th, 2023, is $634,776. We have an application for reimbursement or federal state forest land for 2 sites, the Governor Wentworth Historic Site and Wentworth State Park. We have 1 property tax credit, and that's it for the bulk vote.
Move to approve bulk vote A through C.
I'll second.
Motion by Luke, seconded by Linda to approve the bulk vote. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next on the agenda, we have some board committee appointments. We have 3 alternates adding on to the Library Board of Trustees for 1-year terms. Diane Bolduc. All these terms are going to expire 7/31/2024. Sharon Merigliano and Sandra Whittier. Board members, any questions, comments, or any of those 3 people here would want to say anything? If you want to come up and say anything to us, you're more than welcome to. Just sit in the background, okay?
Brad, does any board member have an issue with me voting on this when my son sits as a trustee on the library?
I don't myself. Do any other board members okay?
Okay.
Yep.
Say we're fine, Brian. So I'd entertain a motion to appoint these 3 individuals.
So move.
Second.
Motion been made by Dave, seconded by Linda to appoint those 3. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we have a resignation from the Economic Development Committee of Jennifer French. Her term was going to expire 3/31/2024. So I'd entertain a motion to regrettably accept her resignation.
So moved.
Again, I sit on the EDC. Is there any reason that I should step down?
Nope. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Dave. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, our actual versus budget for June.
Catherine Carpentier, Finance Director. Before you is your monthly report for expenses and revenues through June 30th, 2023. Currently, the general fund operating budget is currently at 54%, which is slightly above the 6-month average of 50%. The revenues are currently at 69%, which includes anticipated bond proceeds and use of fund balance. Of note, motor vehicles is at 55%, which is a $1.7 million budget, so we're a little ahead of schedule on that, which is a big revenue generator. The water fund is 46% spent, operating budget only. Electric is 55%, sewer fund is 82%, and Pop Whalen is 62%, which they had some emergency repairs on the compressor for Pop Whalen. Estimated revenues for water at 77%, electric at 51%, sewers at 73%, and Pop Whalen is at 40%. Water charges for residential users is at 46%, and residential sales for sewer is at 42%. This is trending a little low, but that's because of all the rain we've had. People have had to use less water. Some other significant indicators, gas is only at 37%, which is great. Diesel, however, is at 63%. A lot of that has to do with the beginning of the year when we had some bad snowstorms. Overtime overall is at 72%. The town manager and department heads are watching that. We have had some open positions, which would drive that to be a little overspent, hopefully favorability in other places, and legal is only at 36%. Do you have any questions for me at this point?
Board members?
No, I asked mine.
Yep. You make this awful easy for us, Casey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is a discussion of, for memorandum of understanding with the Wolfeboro Library trustees.
So if you recall, a couple months back, we had a memorandum of understanding come forward to outline the relationship between the library board of trustees, the town, and the board of selectmen. After that initial discussion, we sat down with the library trustee and a couple representatives from the library staff. I believe we've worked out the agreement that is in the best interest of all parties involved. You have the draft in front of you, and I believe that there is a library trustee and our new librarian here to speak on this behalf.
Thank you.
Brad, again, my son is involved in writing this MOU. Would you request that I step down?
I'm okay with it, 'cause I'm assuming you can keep a good objective mind on everything here, so.
I think
Anybody else?
that's a personal choice.
Yep.
I mean, when my husband stands up, I step down. If you feel comfortable sitting, I have no problem. I think that's, each and every one of us have to make those hard decisions.
Okay.
There we go. All right. I'm just going to read something real brief that's from the legal Q&A from our summer newsletter, the Library Trustees Association of New Hampshire. And it's written by Nate Grays. I know him pretty well, actually. He's a great gentleman who works for the New Hampshire Municipal Association, very bright legal mind. Figuring out MOUs. Memorandums of Understanding, commonly known as MOUs, are understandings between two or more entities. They're frequently used to resolve issues that can arise between two governmental entities where there may be overlapping authority. These types of agreements are often considered only after a problem arises, but it is always a good idea to try to head off a problem before it becomes a serious issue. The relationship between the library and the town is one of those areas where problems can arise. Thankfully, that hasn't been the case in the writing of this MOU or the relationship between our library and town. We have a very positive relationship, and this is a pleasurable experience. Mr. Grays goes on to write, what is important, however, is for library trustees and select boards to work together to clarify the realms of responsibility. Where it is not clear, a basic starting point for existing libraries can be cataloging the various features of their library where there may be disagreements. For freestanding libraries, that's probably everything outside the physical structure of the library. For internal libraries, that's probably the four walls, the ceiling, and the floor. From the basis, figure out which entity, trustees or select board, has traditionally maintained which feature and which features are in contention. For those where tradition has been long established and there isn't disagreement, it should be fairly easy to craft an agreement, a MOU, outlining the relative responsibilities of the trustees and the select board. For those contentious issues, more negotiations may need to take place. Once an agreement is crafted, approved, and signed by both the trustees and the select board, it is up to both sides to abide by it and notify the other if something goes astray. So just so the public is aware and so we're all on the same page, that's why we're creating this, so we're all on, well, the same page to know whose responsibilities are what. And I think we crafted a document that our Board of Library Trustees has passed at our last meeting that meets the expectations of both parties involved in the MOU. And I'll take any other questions.
Should that, what you just read, can that be submitted into the minutes?
Sure, you can keep it. I don't need any more after this meeting.
Okay.
I highlighted the parts I read too, if that'll help. But.
Okay. Linda?
Yeah, I helped work on this, so I will abstain from voting. I think it's a great idea. I think it addresses that partnership that we can have and clearly defines which jobs, which entity is going to take. And I support the trustees for presenting it here tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments or from the board?
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
I just want to make sure the draft you guys have is the one last edited on June 12, 2023. Just want to make sure you're voting on the same draft that we voted upon, because there's been probably 5 drafts thus far of this.
Yeah, 6/12.
Okay. All right.
So I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Wolfeboro Library Trustees dated 6/12/2023.
Second.
Motion by Luke, seconded by Dave. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstained.
And one abstention by Linda. All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is a rule to authorize a town manager to sign the highway safety grant for police department.
So I believe this is one of our traditional grants that comes forward from the Wolfeboro Police Department. I believe there is representatives from the police department if you have specific questions for them.
Okay. Board members, any questions for the chief here?
No, we held we held a public hearing earlier, right?
Yes, I believe we
That's
did.
what I thought we did. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any.
Did you want to say anything about this at all, chief? Or?
Annual program, and I believe it coincides with the federal government's fiscal year. Begins in October, and it's for, I think, $15,300 for speed, DWI, and pedestrian safety enforcement.
Yep. Any questions? Motion?
Move to authorize town manager to sign the highway safety grant for the police department.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Linda to approve and authorize Jim to sign. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All
Thank
set?
you, folks.
Thank you. Next is a discussion regarding the ambulance contract.
Okay, so earlier this year, I instructed Chief Zotti to issue an RFP for ambulance services going forward. We know that there is some issues currently within the nation and in New Hampshire relative to EMS and the stability of EMS in the future. He was able to issue that RFP when we received the results. We had 2 bidders who bid on the proposed contract as outlined. Interestingly enough, the incumbent provider did not submit a bid. The bids ranged from $1.4 million annually to $300,000 annually. Those contracts come with some stipulations to them. However, if we want to maintain the status quo of what we have today of 2 ALS ambulances, 24/7, 365, that's the $1.4 million option. So as a result of that, I had a conversation with the chief and the deputy. We began doing some size up for the possibility of fire-based ambulance services. We put together a quick package, came to the Board of Selectmen in non-public last Thursday to discuss contract regarding the ambulances. We feel that the best option going forward is to consider fire-based ambulance services for the town of Wolfeboro. Minimally, that will require in 2024 hiring of at least 4 firefighters to bring this service on board. Additionally, it'll include the need for an interim contract to be able to provide ambulance services until we can get a budget approved and get the equipment in town to be able to provide the services. We've got a significant amount of work to do. When we talked with the Board of Selectmen, they want us to investigate every option to include equivalent to what we have today. The equivalent to what we have today would require a significant number of hires moving forward. But we do believe, based on the projections that we've brought forward, the possibility of creating revenue, we're going to be able to provide the best service to the citizens of Wolfeboro and the visitors of Wolfeboro based on that. Stewart's Ambulance, in their letter to the Board of Selectmen regarding the why they did not bid, in their letter from the executive chairman, it states, given my experience, discussions with the town, I believe that the best EMS option for Wolfeboro in terms of both quality and cost is to have Wolfeboro Fire provide primary 911 response. Stewart's came to a similar conclusion in Laconia in 2018, and that's from the Justin Van Etten, the executive chairman of Stewart's Ambulance. We know that no matter what we do, it's going to be significant costs. But I think one of the advantages that we have with this is technically today, ambulance service, if you can believe it, is not considered an essential service. If we as the town of Wolfeboro take on ambulance service, we can make a statement to our citizens and visitors that it is an essential service to the citizens and visitors of our community. There is going to be some challenges with it, but I do believe that we have the talented staff in place to be able to make this happen. And it's not anything that is outside of the realm of what fire department operations are today. I've summarized it quickly. You have a bunch of data points. One of the points going forward is the chief, the deputy, myself, and the staff will have to be engaged in doing public information campaigns to be able to sell this, so that when we get to the budget committee, when we get to the warrant articles, we can get buy-in from the voters. The chief and the deputy are here to be able to hopefully answer any questions that you may have. Short of that, that's my brief overview of what we covered. Chief?
All right.
First of all, thank you. Tom Zotti, Fire Chief, and Deputy Nichols is here as well. We'd like to thank you and the town manager for entertaining us in this. We do understand that there's a lot of work involved. I would also like to thank Jim for being willing to allow us to put an option forward that we dropped on him at 1 o'clock this afternoon. The deputy would be willing to hand that out to you. We understand you haven't seen this before. As we talked about in our meeting last week, we discussed the RFPs and different options. One of the things that we took away from that was that you wanted to see a variety of options on paths forward. So we took it back, spent some time developing what you see before you, which is essentially a broad stroke proposal. This isn't necessarily in any way intended to be entirely substitute for what the town manager has already put forth, but in the spirit of different options, we would like to at least put that on the table, and we do credit Jim for letting us do that on quite short notice. Perhaps the main difference in what you're looking at is it's essentially a phased-in program that, when eventually complete, puts us essentially where we are today in terms of being able to drive 2 staffed ambulances out the door at an initial tone. We've looked at a variety of models for response. One of our concerns going forward is today, with the current contract and with the contracts, the RFPs that are contemplated, we can respond with our cross-trained firefighters, and the ambulance will respond with 1 or 2 ambulances based on the nature of the call and that level of training and ability to perform the variety of tasks we perform. We've looked at a variety of models. It would be difficult for us to come up with a model where the second ambulance would have to be driven, staffed by people who are either off duty or responding from home and not have that delay. We are working actively to be able to provide statistics on, it's become the bane of my existence, trying to massage our department management software to develop a statistic on the number of concurrent calls we do. I was able to speak to the vendor today. The reason I have not been able to do that over the last few years is because the system doesn't have the capability of doing that, but they did give us a path to being able to do that. We would have to pursue a module with them that would allow us to put our data into Microsoft Access and be able to query it and so forth, but we're working on that. I can tell you that up until approximately 2017, when we were using a different type of software, we averaged 10 to 12% of our calls a year were concurrent calls, at least 2, if not more, calls going on at the same time. So what we would like to present to you is, again, the broad strokes of our idea on how to address that in a manner similar to what we have today. If the board so chooses and wants us to put some more energy into that, we would certainly work to provide you with more detailed financial projections and so forth. We'd like anything to add?
Nope. Yeah, again, I want to thank Jim for allowing us to put this proposal before you. The voters, the residents and visitors of Wolfeboro have come to expect a certain level of EMS service in the town, and I think it's important that we are able to continue that. We have exceptional staff here tonight, and they're all here, and we appreciate their support. They're more than ready to jump on board and make this happen. There are not significant challenges with either one of these options. I mean, the public safety building construction is couldn't be at a worse time, but we can make it happen. I got full confidence in our people. Like the chief said, with our call volume and the town washing away the last few days, we didn't have a lot of time to flush out some of these numbers. So if you're willing to guide us in that way, we can get you something similar to what Jim gave you originally with the adding the 4 too. So that's all I had. Thanks.
And if I could, I'd like to reiterate that, and also, we understand, regardless of what direction the board chooses, it's a heavy lift. It's new, it's different. I reiterate the deputy's confidence in our staff. We do challenges, that's our job. And this is a challenge, and it'll be several challenges.
This is not unique, though.
No.
No, isn't there 40 or 45% of the state that operates?
In ballpark numbers, I believe roughly half of the municipal fire departments in New Hampshire are licensed to transport patients in their own ambulances.
I'm not an expert at this, but I'm learning, and I'm trying to get a grip over it. And I think it will be not only a financial benefit to the town going down the road, but also we know that ambulance services are starting to close, that they're stretched for employees like every other industry. And to know that we're going to have employees there year in, year out to protect our citizens is fantastic. And another piece to this is when you see someone who is on an ambulance, you might not know who they are. But when you see a face that you know in town, because they're already your first responders in town, I think that creates a very secure feeling for the people of Wolfeboro.
Yeah, just one
ahead,
question,
go ahead.
Linda, then have
Yep,
it
no
to you.
problem.
Chief, one question, or if you want to maybe explain a little bit on the difference of the two options for 2026. Option 1 was to add 2 firefighter, EMT, AEMTs. Option 2 was add 1 firefighter and enroll the EMS captain into the groups. And then further down, the EMS captain, I think it talks about being a paramedic level position in the department there. And we've had, Goggins Hospital has a paramedic that goes out on meets, en route, I guess is what you call it. I just wanted to kind of hear the, clarification, the reasoning and thoughts behind that.
Yeah, Brad, I can take that. Those are all good questions. I should have flushed out the details a little bit more on the options, but let me start backwards a little bit. for the justification for the EMS captain. Yes, half the towns in the state provide municipal ambulance to their towns. Wolfeboro doesn't have those decades of institutional knowledge to be able to fall back on. I feel it's vital to bring somebody in who can help us with the transition, with their knowledge of fire-based EMS. Ideally, it would be staffed by a paramedic and a state-certified instructor, which would allow that person to then put on classes at the department for our members to get them trained to where they need to be. That would be a pretty big advantage. They'd be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the EMS component, respond as needed at the paramedic level, do QA, QI on the EMS reports for accuracy, which would ensure proper billing, and some other lighter duty stuff. It would also give us one more person to respond to suppression or rescue activities. So that was the justification for that position. The options, option one would keep that position as an EMS captain, okay, and add 2 firefighters to the roster, bringing the total makeup would be 4 groups of 5 firefighters and that EMS captain on during the day. The second option is hire 1 firefighter in 2026 and roll that EMS captain into a group leader and change kind of the structure of how we operate right now. Ideally, we would have a captain, a lieutenant, and 3 firefighters per group. Does that answer that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Linda?
Yeah, I just want the public to know that before the board moved down and we talked about it, we did get a lot of sheets with a lot of information to help us get a handle on the financial impact, which this will have one way or another, whether we go with an ambulance service or we do this. From my years on the Board of Selectmen, the town has always wanted to have 2 ambulances. We negotiated contracts and paid more in order to have that. So I'm definitely in support of us keeping 2 ambulances and us being able to have that at ready call. I need to sit down and think about this. We also need some cost impact of this as something new. And at least where I am, I've got to listen to you and use your skills and your knowledge to know which way to go on it. But I thank you for getting us the information I think we need, and we're going to need to study it, and we're going to count on you to help us sell it, because this is going to be a big cost.
We absolutely understand that, and we're prepared to, if given the nod in that direction, begin to do outreach and schedule some public input sessions, work sessions, however we want to phrase them, possibly in conjunction with construction going on at the new building, too.
Yeah. Yep. Any other questions, comments from the board? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, next on the agenda is front 4 sellers of New Hampshire, permission for chairs and tables on the sidewalk. We have a group here.
Good evening. Not sure, have you guys had a chance to read the memorandum for us?
Yes, could you just start out by stating a name for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Michael Bilodeau, and my wife is Julia Bilodeau. We're the owners of Front 4 Sellers. We moved in June, so we've been there about 6 weeks. And our request is to place 2 tables with 2 chairs each on both sides of the entry door on 13 on the entrance of 13 Railroad, because our building actually has 2 entrances, one on Central and one on Railroad. And when we rented the unit, we were told that we would be able to put 2 of those there. And so we did, and about a week ago, we were informed that we were not in compliance with ordinances within the town. And so here we are. We planned on coming to you guys and asking for permission anyways because of the required liquor laws of New Hampshire and the fact that we need to have a cordoned off area in order to serve alcohol on the outside of the building. But that is one manner or one issue that has to be dealt with. But in particular, our concern is the fact that our customers would like to sit outside and enjoy the food that we have and the various wines that we offer to the public. And it's been very successful since then. And we added some posts about, what, a week ago? 2 weeks ago? For a couple of reasons. A, for the liquor issue, but also because we had found that we were constantly getting our chairs and taken from our location to all over town. They usually ended up down at the street corner. And so we put those in, and ever since we put those in, none of our chairs were moved. So that's one issue. The other issue is the ADA compliance issue that I think I outlined in the memorandum to you guys with a plethora of pictures to show that we were in complete ADA compliance in every way, shape, and form with respect to the distances from the chairs and the table and the section that we sectioned off. But ADA is a big thing, but in all honesty, I'm going to turn it over to the better part of this relationship, the wife, because she knows ADA. She worked in that area far better than I, so I'm going to let her address the whole ADA concerns, if I may.
All right. Good evening. How are you all? I am Julia Bilodeau. I've actually spent my entire adult life advocating for equal access to all. I've been a special education teacher. I was in charge right after ADA was enacted in 1990. In early 90s, I was one of the ones that worked in a rehabilitation hospital for spinal cord, brain injury, and stroke. And I went out in the community and I assisted businesses on how to become ADA compliant. With that kind of background and us taking over this building that kind of bothered me because it wasn't ADA compliant, and I realized it's not financially, we can't do that to make it. It's not feasible. That the one way I can make my services available to every member that wants to take advantage of it is by having outdoor seating. There's absolutely no way to get a wheelchair into our establishment. I had a problem with that, even though the very first thing I had them do was make the bathroom door open outward before we even opened, because I knew anyone on a walker or wheelchair, that is how they would have to be able to access at least the restroom facilities. So when it comes to ADA, it's something I feel very passionately about. Like I mentioned, I've been doing this my entire life as an adult from the time I was 16 even on, advocating for equal access to all. And I just want to make sure that my business is a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, do we have questions? Dave?
Yeah, I think some of this area, I certainly know at the end of this block that the stores that are there own property out into the sidewalks. And I believe that their tables and chairs at the end are on their property. And I'm not sure where the property lines are on the rest of that block, whether the property line comes out further than the front of the buildings, or whether it's just the stores on the end. I'm not sure.
The reason the stores at the end ended up owning and being able to put the chairs out, the town had its sidewalk on their property, and that was part of a legal agreement on where they could have tables, and in that exchange, we got the sidewalk. I'm with you, Dave. I don't know exactly where that line is of the property, which causes us part of the issue. And let me read from our zoning ordinance, Chapter 5, and this has to do with the consumption of alcohol on town property. And it says, except as provided below, and there were some buildings that we allowed it to happen, the consumption of alcohol is prohibited on all property over which the town has supervision and control. The maximum penalty for the first offense shall be a fine of up to $100, any portion of which may be suspended. Conviction of a section and subsequent offenses shall be a fine of $150, and no portion of that fine may be suspended. I'm not advocating a fine, but it makes it impossible if those tables are on the town sidewalk for us to okay the consumption of alcohol on it by our town statutes. So, Dave, I think it's very important for us to know where that property line is because of this.
If I may comment on that, I included a picture of the plat from the town in our picture in our presentation to you guys.
I know. I don't have that.
So a couple things. The property line does extend out about almost 4 feet, a little bit short of 4 feet at the end of the building, and there is a descending line that actually narrows. So some of the property, when you get to the end of the building, you don't have as much space that's owned by us at the end than there is on the beginning. So that should be very visible in the plat picture that we sent to you. Also, the ability to want to serve alcohol is third on the list, right? That's not the main reason we're here to have seats, to ask for the seats. We're here to ask for the seats more because we also offer food and we offer non-alcoholic stuff for other people. And the biggest issue is obviously the ADA piece of people that visit our establishment just are not able to come in. And so I wouldn't, I understand what the ordinance is with respect to the liquor now, and I didn't, so that is not the main reason we're here.
Well, I run into this problem, and my feeling is here that we've allowed some tables on the sidewalk, and those are open to everybody. Nobody can say this is only for our establishment. And they put it out. One of the ones is the pretzel shop. They have theirs up against. There's no signs on it. The ones down at Seven Sons, I took a picture of it saying, please don't move the table, and that's for the ADA. And I guess I need clarity to know where it is under the planning board and where it is under us. Because my understanding, if they're using their own property, they need to go to site review, update.
Correct.
If it's town property, then we make the decision. So I'm not quite, since we've got part our land and part your land, exactly what the recommendations are and which way we should go.
Yep. So if you are on your own property, it does have to go to site review for planning. And as I said before, we're opening up a can of worms by looking at this piece by piece by piece by piece by piece. We need a sidewalk ordinance. I submitted to the board a copy of Concord sidewalk ordinance. Okay, slow down. I know Concord has big wide sidewalks and they're different than us and blah, blah, blah and all that, but it's a good template to use to start with. The other thing that I think we have to look at is we have to look at ADA. ADA is important. We need 36-inch minimum. I understand that. But there's a lot of stuff that people don't understand. See my tape measure? Just walked the entire downtown, measured all the sidewalks. Everybody says our sidewalks are 4 feet wide here, but there isn't a sidewalk down there that isn't 6.5 to 7 feet or 8 feet wide or more. I put a tape on them. That being said, I have a problem with this. Can you move a little bit closer to Brad?
Hi, Brad. How are you doing?
Okay, let's see. Brad and Linda are 45 inches across. If we leave them 36 inches, how are they going to walk side by side on the sidewalk? Oh, one of them's going to walk off into the gutter. Well, guess what? New Hampshire State RSA, if there's a sidewalk and you walk into a gutter, you get fined. You just broke a state RSA. My father is 86 years old. My mother is 85 years old. She has a vestibular imbalance. He has to hold her when she walks. They cannot go single file at 36 inches. If there's a man or woman pushing a stroller and they have a little one beside them, they take up more than 36 inches. We have sidewalks that are 6 or 7 or 8 feet wide. We need to keep, in my opinion, minimum 4 feet. How about if we have a long line, 75 feet, and it's 36 inches wide, and you have 10 people down there and you have 10 people down here? Who's walking? You're waiting for 15 people to walk 75 feet or 50 feet in single file, getting out of the way, and then you're going. Or you're walking out into the street and breaking state RSA again. So we need, before we start piecemealing and throwing the dart against the dartboard, we need to start looking at having a real live ordinance that works for everybody. And we have to make sure before we start saying yes for you, no for you, we know where property lines are.
Brad?
And I appreciate that. And what you say makes complete sense. 36 inches is the absolute minimum required for ADA. Yeah. So you've got to supply 36. If you look at the pictures that we've provided, the majority of our pictures are 44, 45. A, B, we have seen those exact same scenarios that you just mentioned with our posts up and with our distance set up where people could easily move on those sidewalks. So we've done our homework. We've more than done our homework over the last 6 weeks to make sure that we would adequately have enough traffic, because trust me, you guys know, I'm new here. I'm new to the town, but I've been in this area for 40 years. Yeah. There's people all the way down Railroad Ave sometimes at night trying to get other services, and
there are steps that come off from buildings that turn 6-foot or 7-foot sidewalks into 5-foot sidewalks.
Right. That's not the case for us, though.
Our hardware store has a section where it is ADA compliant by a ½ an inch, but there is a long stretch where it's 36 inches of sidewalk. But I don't know who owns that sidewalk. So I can't say, the hardware store, you're not in compliance with our sidewalk ordinance because we don't have a good sidewalk ordinance. And I can't say that they're not in compliance because I don't know who owns it. So we gotta get a policy together.
So in our packet, which is great, all the pictures and stuff like that are great, we didn't get the plot plan.
I provided the plot to Terry, is that?
Yeah, we just
Who's
didn't.
the town?
Jim, didn't you email it to us?
I did. I emailed you one from the Registry of the Deeds that I pulled.
And what is
I don't
that?
know why his is not in the packet.
What does it show?
But I did include it in my package that I emailed to the
Thank you.
Selectman Secretary.
Thank you.
We didn't get it, but thank you for doing that. I got to agree with Brian, in opposed to just taking a look at this. We need a policy on where we're going to go here. And I think after COVID, a lot of people like to eat outside, which is what has brought this up in the number that we're getting. But I'm with Brian. I would like a policy so that we move forward in a very thought out plan, and that we leave enough room on our sidewalks. Opposed to just your application, I think we need to look
So
at as a whole. And we may want to do this for up until a date and then have them pull, and then we need to. Yeah. We have some work, as I think a board, to come up with a policy for next year.
Yeah, the applicant should take and have a site review with the planning board. They should take and do like you did and have a real survey of the property so we can actually see, because town tax maps don't show exactly.
So, Brian.
And then there it is. I saw that, yeah.
So that's pulled from the Registry of the Deeds, from the corner of the building out. They own 3.76 feet. And then it tapers from that point back into the building. So that gives you an idea from the corner of the building what they actually own.
And I will say that to the right of that, at the beginning of the property, our table and 2 chairs on the right side of the door is completely on our property.
Yep.
The other table and 2 chairs is half on our property, half on the town. And let me also address the planning board issue. Tavis was visited with me on Friday with respect to that, getting all those processes in place. He agreed that should you guys, the selectmen, allow us to put the tables in there, that he would work with me come winter when the season slows down to go through all the processes from the planning committee to get it done. But we had to obviously get the approval of the selectmen initially. I know there's an issue. I think that it's something that needs to be addressed in the town. I'm not denying that. I think it needs to be more black and white. I'm all for participating and helping accomplish that as a newbie in town, and doing whatever I can to assist in that development. And also in consideration of that, if the selectmen feel that this is not the right time to maybe grant us full access, I'd like to ask the selectmen to at least consider a temporary or a probationary period similar to what you gave to another member on that street, and so that you guys can see and come down and kind of get a feel for what we do and how we do it. And the big thing is to understand is the ADA is the biggest issue, and we won't be able to have those customers in here. So, and if we can work over the next year to help put a plan together and get access to that now and work with the town as we develop a plan, we're all for that.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
If not, I have another one.
Okay.
Would you be willing to take your sign off that says just for your customers?
Absolutely.
Yes, the reason we put that sign, if I can address that issue, the only reason that sign's on there is before we put our posts to kind of, with the little chain link fence, the chairs were, every morning I'd come to work, I'd have to go run down the other end of the block to get my chairs. Once I put those up and we put the sign on it, the chairs weren't there. A, B, we kind of just went down and read what the coffee shop had put on their tables, and we just put the same basic thing on our tables. But yeah, we'd be glad to take it off.
You said the difference was it was for your customers only. Theirs was don't move the tables. You can put a sign on it says, please don't move the tables and chairs. It's just you can't, if we decide to do it, which we did with the other group, is once it's on the sidewalk, it's for everybody. And if that's agreeable, that I think is a big step for me, and the alcohol.
That's a minor issue. That's easy. We'd have no problem with that at all.
I think another thing that the pretzel company is doing too is they take, at nighttime, they're taking the chairs and tables inside, so they don't come into work in the morning and
But
where the heck is
once
everything?
we put the posts up with the little chain to kind of section it off, so that the people in one particular lady in a wheelchair asked us to put, if we could do something like that, because there were so many people walking by her, she felt like she couldn't enjoy. So that was the main reason we did it. And moving the chairs in, I mean, we'd like not to have to do that, because the pretzel guy, their tables are really small and you can fold them up. Really can't fold ours up. Yeah. And
see, this is why I did say when the pretzel company was approved, I said, well, this is on town property. We're opening up a can of worms. If it's on somebody's private property, I don't have a problem with it. I would love it if you kept your chairs and tables until we figure this ordinance out on the property that's owned by the building. That would make me very, very happy. And like I said, we're going to have to spend this winter and get an ordinance in place so that we can figure out what's going to happen, what we think a good minimum width is, because 36 inches, again, is the minimum requirement. It's necessary for a wheelchair, but it doesn't necessarily facilitate the ease of movement for the general public, families, children, elderly people without wheelchairs on sidewalks. And I was shocked when I found out, because I always find things when I just do a little digging, that you can't walk off a sidewalk onto a road. You're breaking state RSA. And we have the other issue is that all of our vehicles are now this high with bumpers that come up to the table, and they pull 1.5 feet over the sidewalk when they park. So
Yeah, we measured that area too. We had a GMC 2500 truck that is probably the biggest one that you can park there, and we still had 44 inches of clearance between the bumper, and we had his wheel all the way on to our lever, so we had 44. We've measured every conceivable option to make sure that, because I understand what you're saying on the 36 inches, by all means, but I think we've got more than enough clearance for 2 people and a kid, stroller to pass by our stuff without any issues whatsoever.
So are you okay if we do, as a board, approve this? Are you okay if next year it's different?
If it's different next year, it's different next year. I'm gonna try to get involved as much as I can to try to help you guys orchestrate something if you guys want my help. But if you put a committee together, I'll be part of it.
Yeah, we can't do like Concord. Concord ends up having 6 to 8 foot zone A for restaurants, a 6 foot minimum passage for zone B to walk, and then an 8 to 10 foot zone C for ornamentals and lampposts and things like that. We
But
can't have that.
their streets are wider, and their streets are wider, and their sidewalks are wider.
Yeah, and they spent a lot of years just recently rebuilding everything for walkability. So we have to work with what we have.
That's right.
And we have to make sure that everybody gets, a piece of the pie. Businesses get to use it, and it's easy for, do we have the oldest population in the state of New Hampshire in Wolfeboro? Yes, we do. Does that mean that we may have a lot of people that need level sidewalks with a decent amount of room to manage them? Probably.
However, you also have to realize that you're also going to need businesses that can allow those people to enjoy the services, because then we are out of compliance.
Correct.
And if I don't have a way to provide that service in any way, shape, or form, there's nothing I can do.
Yep.
If you guys tie my hands. So.
And that actually opens us up to legal liability at that point if somebody comes to us and we don't provide them with an ADA compliant option, which is.
Yeah, I would also like to see that chain go down, because if those tables are open to the public, that chain kind of tells you not to go. So, 2 tables, 2 chairs, sign saying don't move them, I'm fine with that. The next question I have is for the board and probably for Jim. If the owners of these buildings own part of the sidewalk, and I was walking down, and some of the sidewalks are in poor shape, and the town is going to have to do some repair on it, we're going to need to come up with some kind of formula for them to pay their share, because we can, as a town, do work on private property. And I think some of our cement sidewalks. So we need to also figure out how we're going to address that and have it clear to people where we are on it. I don't want at some point something to come up and surprise people. So those are the other 2 things.
Yeah, correct. I was getting there, plus snow removal.
I think we're responsible for the snow removal in front of our building all the way to the sidewalk. At least that's at least what I was told when we signed the lease, that we're responsible to the edge of the sidewalk for snow removal. But I mean, that's a different story than for the entire town. I get that part. But Ms. Murray, I'd like to also address, maybe if I could, the chain link area. Even with the chain link fence, the biggest thing the chain link fence did for us is twofold. A, it kept our chairs at the building, not down the street, and it allowed our ADA customers to be able to have some semblance of privacy while they were eating. The people, we don't open until noontime most days. That area is heavy coffee area, as you probably all well know. We come in all the time and people are sitting in our chairs. We don't have any problem with that at all. So the chain link separation really is not impeding the public from using our seating at all.
I think it does say this is a special area. That's my opinion. I may lose, as I have earlier today, in what I believe in, but I believe that does. It confines it. It says this is ours. That's what fences usually do. They divide. So, I could go along with the sign, saying not to move
Oh, we'll
chairs.
definitely take the sign off completely. I'm not worried about that.
And get rid of the chain link with the understanding it's for 1 year until we come up with a policy.
Or even till the end of the year. And then next year we could, because they may,
Yeah,
if they
yes.
find out that this is their property, then in this instance, they may be able to put the
They've gotta
chain
go
thing
then-
back up. You know what I mean? If it's
But
their,
that's not us then.
because planning board, correct.
It's a planning board.
Yeah, so
And we
they,
may want to meet with planning board.
correct.
That, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I will go. I meant to the end of this year,
Yep.
December.
That's
I
fine.
agree with you.
And I'll go one farther. Brad told me I was off my rocker when I said this before, but I don't think I was. If there's a bench along a building, everybody thinks they can sit in it. When a table and chairs goes beside a door where a certain business is selling food and drinks, I think that inherently goes into everybody's mind, oh, this is for patrons of that establishment. So I don't see a need, like Linda, to have the roped-off area. If it comes down to something where you need that, if someone's going to have a glass of wine outside, that's something that you bring to us and let us know.
Yeah, but we can't do that based on the ordinance of the town. I mean, for me to petition the selectmen to serve alcohol out there is a moot point right now because the ordinance specifically addresses that issue and says it cannot happen.
On public property?
Unless it's your property.
On public property.
Oh, okay.
On the one side.
If it's your property and you go to planning board and get site plan review and they determine that that's actually your property where the chairs are.
Correct.
Then that's your property. And then if the town is no longer hypothetically taking care of the sidewalk there, because that would be maintaining it, in that verbiage, it kind of said, I believe the thing you read said maintaining. We had custodial.
Well, then that opens up another.
Yeah, but
No, this
but
is talking about just alcohol.
regardless of that, if it's your property and you go to planning board, you get site plan review in the
Yeah.
fall.
Right.
And then potentially, you could serve alcohol there, but that's all going to be determined based on site plan, based on the property and all that stuff. But for the rest of the year,
Yeah, well, the
for the rest
first
of the year,
chair,
I'd be
the
comfortable
first
with the
table and two
chairs.
chairs is definitely on our property, completely. And Jim was down there on Friday with his tape measure, and he can verify that the right side table and two chairs is definitely on our property. The other chair to the left of the door is probably three-quarters our property and a quarter your property. It's a real fine line between yours and mine, and I'd heed to the fact that some of the legs do fall on the outside of the area town space.
I actually had somebody today when I was measuring, I measured with a lot of people, and I measured a lot of people, and I had people stand, and I went like this with them and everything, and I had one person say, this is like Amsterdam. When you walk through Amsterdam, there's stuff all over the sidewalk, plants, this, that, and you have to walk through single file. And I'm like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Amsterdam's beautiful. And they said, the sidewalks are crowded. So we just have to work it out. We just got to figure it out.
I think I'd consider going along with this under those comments that have been made. That, obviously one table and chair is going to be on your property there. The sign gets changed to just do not, remove them.
Just remove the sign.
And I would agree with Linda. I do have a problem with the chain there and stuff too, because that does also take up more room too out into the sidewalk, which would be on the town portion there, to try and maintain as much width as we can. I know there were measurements taken on the pretzel place. I think they maintained 5 feet all the way down through there, which I felt comfortable with that. So,
here's a question for
I
Brett.
just want to say I'd go along with under those conditions there. I would consider this temporary for like a pilot for a year, like we did with the pretzel company.
So here's a question. When I measured the sidewalks, what's considered a sidewalk? To the edge of the curb, against the sidewalk, or to the edge of the curb by the street side? What's considered a sidewalk? The
I agree.
inside?
I think the street side,
The street side. So right to the edge over and onto the...
where it drops down.
That's what I would say.
Okay. That's something that we have to check, because there's a 5 or 6 inch difference depending on how wide the
Right.
granite
You need a
curve is.
second for your motion?
I
Here,
didn't make a motion. No, I didn't.
I'll make a motion.
So may I bring up one more issue? So I'm trying to understand with respect to the chain. If the chain is on our property, are we allowed to put, because you mentioned if it's on our property, then we have the right to have liquor.
After you go to planning.
Right. No. After, I get
That's
that.
something you do with them.
Yes.
That's where our hands are off. If it's on your property, you got to
So
go.
technically-
We're just saying, we'll let you do this if
Yeah.
we make this motion up through a period of time while you work on.
Okay.
Yeah, technically, because it hasn't been approved by planning, we could say, move your chairs. It looks like we're leaning towards allowing the chairs. We're just asking nicely to take down the rope so it doesn't look like we're going to see a movie at the movie theater.
Did you make the motion, Linda?
I will. I make a motion to approve 2 tables, 4 chairs on the front floor cellar of New Hampshire until December 31st, 2023. There will be no chain. The chairs and tables will be open to the general public, and that if they want to have, they should go to the planning board for any more clarity on their own property.
Second.
We have a motion by Linda, seconded by Luke. Is there any other discussion? One question I would have, Linda, is when you talked about the chain, and this gentleman just brought it up too, are we talking about not having the chain on the town property portion?
Not having the chain up, because we're granting them special permission, and because to do all this, it's their property, they'd have to go for site
Right.
plan. And we're granting, and I think we can, unless Jim tells me no, that they can have those 2 tables, 4 chairs. They may not have that chain.
Okay, but the point was, would it be the chain if it was completely on their property? I just want to clarify, that's all.
I'm saying no
you're saying no
chain at
Okay,
all,
yep.
because all that they need to deal with the planning board, because, and I'm just saying, we're going to get you through this summer.
Right.
That's what I see us doing here.
I think we call this compromise? Is that what it is?
Could be.
Yeah, it's a compromise.
That's
Amazing.
what
If that
makes the
makes
world
sense.
go around.
It does, I just wanted to clarify,
Yep.
that's all.
Yep.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
Try
very
it.
much.
Thank you very much.
Now we got another one.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, folks, we have another one now. For local Topia, permission for chairs and tables on a sidewalk. You got a hard act to follow there.
You got a
Thank you.
preview.
I feel like the path has been forged for me. My request is Peter Ford, representing Local Topia in the building located at 27 South Main Street. I think my request is very similar, but a little bit different in one important way. If you look at the diagram that I submitted, the 3 buildings on this block, one being Local Topia, which is on the corner of South Main Street, and that's not Lake Street, but Dockside. And then the other building, the next building up the road, which is 33 South Main Street, which has the Downtown Grill, and then the third building, which has Winnie Paws. Those buildings are not perpendicular to the street. Each corner of those 3 buildings is approximately 6.5 feet from the curb, or probably 7 feet from the edge of the roadway. And so it naturally creates a triangular area that is not in the flow of traffic of pedestrians, and that is the area that we are asking for permission to put 3 tables with total of 8 seats. It will maintain a constant walkway of 6 feet that will not be impeded.
Did you measure it?
I did measure it.
Me
yes.
too.
I did. And so, again, my request is to put these tables in an area that is not in the pedestrian walkway. We will maintain 6 feet of constant open space. We will stipulate that we will not have any type of a chain or barrier there. We also, these tables will be open to any public person that wishes to sit there, and they do, and that's perfectly fine for whatever purpose that they want. So, thank you.
No, I have a question, and you probably said it and I wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
Do you own that property, or is it town property?
I do not own that property. For some reason, the property at 27 South Main Street, which is Localtopia, the property line is basically a zero lot line building. The building next to it, which is the Downtown Grill,
Yep.
that property line extends to this 6 or so foot triangular portion. So that property is in fact owned by the building that the Downtown Grill is in.
Okay, so, yeah, this is stuff we have to figure out when we go through and create an ordinance.
I agree with that. A citywide ordinance would be great.
And everything I said before, ditto, so that's it. That's all.
Linda?
Yeah, you don't provide any wait service out to these tables. These are just pick up, sit down, eat.
That is correct. Localtopia is, we have servers that come out and clean the tables and remove anything that's left behind, but we do not have any staff that will go out there and
Going out
serve
and
any
taking-
food.
yeah.
And again, of course, without having a physical barrier, we will not be serving alcohol, or alcohol will not be allowed out there.
Will this in the future, when the Downtown Grill is open back up, will it be using them also, or will
There
it
were
strictly just?
there were tables in front of the Downtown Grill last summer
Yeah.
in the piece of property that was owned by that building.
Yep. Any other questions, comments?
I think we do for one, we do for all.
I agree.
My feeling on this, knowing that we're going to have to come up with some kind of a policy, it's the same thing. Let's get through this year and then see where we end up.
Yeah.
That's just,
We went fishing, we opened a can of worms.
Motion to grant permission through this calendar year through 12/31 for Localtopia to put chairs and tables as outlined in Peter Ford's diagram on Main Street.
Second.
and we should just put in there that these are open to the public.
that these
Even though
tables will
he
be
says
open to
that,
the
I just
public.
would like that.
Motion by Luke,
Second.
seconded by Brian. Do we have any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank
All
you.
set? Okay. Next up, we have an appointment, the residents Stockton regarding a complaint against the police department. Been sitting here patiently for quite a while.
Thank you. I'm Bill Stockton. Good evening. I have something I want to read, and I just want to preface it by saying I brought my complaints to the police, the courts, the county attorney, the Public Integrity Unit of the Department of Justice, the Civil Complaint Unit of the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, the Governor, among many other things. And everybody seems to want to pass the buck on this. Even your own town manager has actually told me that you guys have nothing to do with the police, while the governor, Preston Young from the governor's office, called me and said on RSA 41 says that they are actually under your purview. So I don't know. I'm learning a lot, but obviously I don't know everything. But I'm here. Having said that, though, I want to say that Chief Chase has reached out and said he will look into it, to his credit. But I'm here only to get this on record and in the public. This was written by my wife, but she doesn't think she can read it without passing out. On June 30th at approximately 8:30 p.m., Sergeant Spirit and an accompanying officer entered my home illegally and arrested my wife for domestic violence, having received a call from a citizen who lied and gave them false information. My door was closed, and I was not home at the time. Spirit and Peasley stated in their reports that I was not home at the time, while Officer Dustin stated that I was. Spirit and Dustin reported that my door was open or ajar when they arrived. However, it was not. These are fabrications these officers created in order to cover their tracks, having illegally entered my home. Police officers should not have conflicting reports, as they are expected to be trustworthy and honest. Had I been home, the officers wouldn't have had to return several hours later to deliver me a citation. Instead, they would have served me right then, along with my wife, when they made contact when they first arrived. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that warrantless entry is only admissible in cases of exigent circumstances involving hot pursuit or a felony. Neither was the case in this instance. These officers were not in hot pursuit, nor were they pursuing a felony, as evidenced by the misdemeanor with which I and my wife were ultimately charged. In fact, the disagreement had ended and we had gone home. I took a walk, she took a shower and changed her clothes. When they arrived at my home, I was not there. At this time, the disagreement had ended. There was no longer cause for concern or any reason to pursue anything at all. They entered my closed door, which they falsely described as ajar on their police report. My wife exited the bathroom, fortunately dressed. She found Spear and another officer standing in my hallway outside the bathroom door, 20 feet into my home. She immediately told them to get out of my house. They did, in fact, immediately leave, as they knew they had entered illegally in violation of my Fourth Amendment rights. Sergeant Spear and Officer Peasley reported that I was unable to be found at the residence and that she had told them to leave. Yet in Officer Dustin's report, he stated that me and my wife were both telling them to get out of the house. I was not present in the house at any time. That's an obvious cover-up by someone. The police report states that my wife was suspected of using alcohol, though not once at any time did they ask her to take a breathalyzer. She was ultimately detained and processed at Carroll County House of Corrections for nearly 15 hours, despite having no criminal history whatsoever in 44 years. As a sexual abuse victim, undressing in front of officers was both humiliating and traumatizing to her, which is one of the reasons she abides by the law consistently. She's probably had 3 traffic tickets in her life. She was also unable to have her autistic son return home. She shares guardianship with his father, and he was due home that Monday. In addition, she was also not allowed to return to my home for a week, and therefore had to make alternative plans with no money or access to any money, because I take care of the bills. And she was not allowed to speak to me. She felt violated and she had lost faith in local law enforcement. Peasley's police report also states that I said we were fighting. I never once said we were fighting. I said we had a disagreement. I repeatedly said we had a disagreement, which admittedly was loud, but absolutely not violent and not a fight. This was done to paint a picture and create a narrative, which is far from reality. This caller lied to the police and filed a false report, which the Wolfeboro police blindly pursued. In retrospect, it's obvious that they knew all along they had broken the law. The state ultimately dropped all the charges on Friday, July 7th, 2 hours before the bail review hearing, after learning that the caller has a very long history of frivolous lawsuits, upward of 50 in this area, and has been known to cause problems for other citizens for years in the area of Jeans Beach. The Wolfeboro Police Department has a very poor track record, and they've incurred many black eyes which reflect badly on this town. We refuse to lay down and take the abuse while our officers continue to harass law-abiding citizens here. I will be, and already have been, in touch with every news outlet that will listen to me, including the Union Leader and the WMUR News, who have both reached out to me in recent days and are both very interested in this story in light of recent events regarding Dean Rondeau and, not so recently, Roger Martell. I will be filing a lawsuit seeking damages in court against the Wolfeboro Police Department for unlawful detainment, false charges, and malicious prosecution. My wife's criminal record until June 30th was absolutely spotless. I hope this does not fall on deaf ears, as I will not be quiet until I feel that we have been fully exonerated. The corruption in this town's police department is severe and obvious, and we will not rest until we feel safe in our town again. Thank you.
The only thing I'll say is that the Police Commission does operate under the authority of RSA 105C:4 in this town, so that's really the only comment that we'll make at this time. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, budget guidelines.
He said that last night.
If you can believe it, it's that time of year again. Getting ready to go into the budget season. We've got some advantages going into this budget season because we have some knowns early on, so we can do some planning. To summarize the memo on the front page of the guidelines, the 12-month average for CPI for the Northeast region, based in our geographical area, is 6.13%. In the 2023 operating budget for the general fund, it was $17,062,000. We anticipate some significant increases in the 2024 operating budget. Some of those current estimates include projections for increases in debt service for the public safety building and the sewer line extensions. We're estimating that to be approximately $650,000 in 2023. That alone represents a 3.81% increase in the general fund budget. We ratified last year 2 collective bargaining agreements, so we won't be negotiating that this year. Those 2 collective bargaining agreements represent wage increases for the police department and a number of the employees in the AFSCME unit. Those costs total $104,112. Represents 43 AFSCME employees and 17 police department employees. My hopes are that when I hand the budget off to the Board of Selectmen, we will have contemplated non-union adjustments in that. As usual, school care is telling us to hold a 10% placeholder. That represents $304,000 over 2023. If you recall, last year we had approved a fire truck lease purchase. We're estimating that lease payment to be $184,000, which will hit the operating budget. However, there will be no capital reserve appropriation to that account, so it's essentially no tax rate impact. We're at that time, at that point now where we have to look at a townwide property reevaluation. We're at 60% of the current tax ratio, and that's the point that we're recommended to do such. Last time round, the Budget Committee was pretty adamant that they would like to see this included in the town's operating budget. We have an estimate of $200,000 for that work. Now, there will be some offsetting reductions because we won't have to do the cyclical work, but that offset will be about $40,000 estimated. We anticipate putting the RFP out for this in the September to October timeframe, so if there's budget adjustments that need to be made for that, we can do that. These items alone represent an 8.45% or $1,442,112 increase in the general fund compared to the 2023 operating budget. So, we've got some work in front of us. My goal when I hand the budget off to you is to hand you a budget with increases no greater than 9.75% or $1,663,546. In the packet, you will see traditional discussions about warrant articles, critical dates published by the New Hampshire Municipal Association, budget documents outlining department heads, how they access the salary and wage adjustments, which, thanks to our very capable finance director, a lot of these things are now auto-calculated, so that will save time for our staff. and I think it's going to be a challenging year. We have received favorability this year in our diesel and heating fuel compared to last year. We haven't dove into it enough to see what any of those offsets are. These are the proposed budget guidelines for the 2024 budget process. You also have in here a letter drafted to the agencies. You have a proposed schedule, which Amy has put together for you relative to your budget hearings to complete the budget for October 30th, 2023. We can do it. Capital outlay forms and the traditional water, sewer, electric rates. I will be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, and obviously, I want to thank you, Jim, for really putting some effort into this, bringing it to our attention, as we've talked in, in meetings, or not meetings, but in discussions with you, that I think we all understand we have our work cut out for us this year. So, any other questions or comments? Linda?
Yeah, I'm just going to do this for the public. The number for the ambulance that's in this budget now, is that 285,000, somewhere's in that area?
I can tell you exactly if you give me about 15 seconds. The ambulance contract as it sits this year is $276,000 and some change.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find the exact number.
And I'm assuming we've talked about, we're probably, I mean, it hasn't been decided yet, but we would probably want to be bringing that in as a warrant article for the public to be able to vote on and have, obviously have the discussions a lot more open that way with information being made available.
The 2023 Stewart's contract is $275,953.
Yeah.
And the lowest bid that we got for 2 ambulances this time, wasn't it 1,000?
So the lowest bid that gives you the equivalent service to today is $900,000.
Oh, 900?
So that's, yeah, that's what we're dealing with. I think that public needs to know that comparison, that it's significant.
Yep.
It's going to be a tough year.
Any other questions from the board? All right.
Could I just get approval to get these to department heads tomorrow?
Oh.
So moved.
Motion by Linda, seconded by Dave. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Capital improvements project update.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the capital projects. It's been a while, but I think we've got some good news. We've got some bad news, and we'll try to get through it. Good news right now, the Pop Whalen project is closed. We issued the final purchase order for that. The overall project came in over budget, $39,000, which we are absorbing in the Pop Whaling operating budget. If you recall as well, you guys appropriated $31,000 and some change for some electrical work that was done for the maintenance building and the lodge. That is accounted for in this budget, but at this point, that project is closed out. There is no retainage held, and we will be hopefully last week in September having ice and getting the arena operating. Any questions relative to that? No? Okay. Seasonal water lines, we've done some work relative to the Waltz Lane. That's completed. We did some work that went out to Camp School when the Pleasant Valley Road work was done. So to date, we've expended $336,000 of the $500,000. The next big part of that project was the museum shores portion. That takes a huge number of users off of a seasonal water line. We're actually completing the engineering now. We anticipate coming in and looking for the balance of those funds in the 2024 operating or capital budget to be able to complete that portion of the work. We're continuing to tick some of those seasonal water lines off as directed by the state. I can try to answer any other questions you may have. No?
Good.
Dockside Phase 3, basically we're in good shape. This is the commercial docks. We've expended to date $669,798 of the $700,000. We have retainage in the amount of $12,000 and some change, which will be released in a year. We do have some additional work that needs to be done down there with some railings and whatnot, but right now the project looks good, and we also had to, if you recall, we came and talked to you guys previously about some wanting to access some capital reserve monies for the phase 1 and 2 of that project. It actually, when we did the research, some of those funds were associated with engineering, permitting of the commercial dock. So we were able to push that into this line, not have to expend that capital reserve money, and we're still within budget. So good news there. Good.
I have one question on that. Did we do the dredging?
The dredging got done, to my understanding. Do you recall that?
As far as I know, there was a lot of dredge material taken. I don't know how much, but that's what...
It's my understanding the dredging was done.
Okay, that's what I just thought.
Yeah. I will verify that with Duncan, but I'm 99% sure that it was done. Port wetland drainage, we're continuing to work on that. You guys saw the presentation from Stantec. Stantec's continuing to work on it. So we'll see what happens there. I anticipate Stantec coming in front of you in the next couple of Board of Selectmen's meetings to outline a couple of projects and give updates on this as we go forward so we can put this through the CIP process. Mill Street Sewer Pump Station, the note here says 60% submittal. They actually just finished the 90%, so that's moving into DES for 90% approval drawings. From that point, we're hopeful that this winter into spring, they issue the RFP and they get the work going. One of the tricky parts about this one is my understanding there's a lot of question about the generator run times, so we may have to get some additional permitting for additional fuel to operate the generators both here and at Laner Street for extended periods of time. And again, this is one of those projects that we have pushed over onto Brad. Any questions you can address to Brad?
No, you can go ahead. You may take care of it.
The only other comment I was going to make was that HDR doing the design is worried about the lead time on some of the components of this of the Mill Street station there, so they're anticipating probably needing to file an extension with DES for the ARPA funds, which are available for this project. So,
well, when I compare what you have on for 2022 and the figure you have on 2023, I thought we added to the project in 2023, so the price should be higher, and it's the same $1,680,000.
You are correct, Linda. And
if you do that, then we'll be able to know.
Okay. I thought I had added it.
I just couldn't make those two make sense. Because I don't know exactly. We did a warrant article that we did Laner and Mill together, and I don't know what part of that went to Mill and what part of it went to Laner. And
So what we're doing with that right now is it's staying in a standalone account.
Okay.
And if we have to utilize those funds for Mill Street or for Laner Street that were appropriated in 2023, the $648,000, we will use those funds. We haven't assigned them out to a project yet.
We don't need to belabor it. I'll come in and ask you a specific question about that one, because I still can't make it make sense to me.
Water treatment plant upgrades. We finally have the filtration media on site. There was a problem with securing the garnet, but that is now here. There is going to be some delays in the second filter being done. The original plan was to have the first filter done for the springtime of 2023 before the peak season hit, and then to do the remainder of the project in the fall. Due to the media delays, that didn't happen, so we're hopeful that we'll get this completed in the spring of 2024. That media is now on site, and once the peak of the season goes by, they'll get into that work. Water main upgrade, South Main Street. We were hopeful that Stantec will be coming to you at either the next Board of Selectmen's meeting or the following one to discuss this project. One of the big topics of conversation right now is, should this project be done at night? That's going to be one of the big topics of conversation when Stantec comes in. I think we've all seen what the traffic is like. If we can do this at night, we can probably get some different contractors to be able to bid on it, and it might give us some favorability. But Stantec will come and speak to you about that in the near future. Bridge Falls Path lighting, everything's on site. Barry did put out an RFP for the installation. However, one of the things that were identified is we need to have a shoreline permit. So that's in process. We're hopeful that this fall that work will be done. Laner Street Pump Station, same thing. We're at 90% drawings. They should be putting the RFP out pretty much within a matter of a couple weeks. And again, this is one of those areas that we may have to use that additional $645,000 that was approved by the voters. Brad, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Not really. This is the one there that the town is, pre-bought, the right word or not, but the pump station and the generator are on order already, so our lead time clock isn't as much of a worry as the Mill Street one, so we would expect this one to kind of go along at a good pace. And then the last item on this particular page, I just received an updated contract amendment for the townwide historic survey, extension of the deadline. So we're hopeful to receive the draft document for that by December 15th, 2023. And I received that from Maggie at the Heritage Commission from their vendor. The 2022 road upgrades, that money's all used up. It's gone. We've basically finished the Maplewood project, and we still have some work, a little bit of work left to do out there. And we've got, as you are probably well aware, some stormwater runoff management issues that we're looking at with the Lake Winnipesaukee Association for Waitgate Road. And then the last item is the water line replacement that went in conjunction with that road upgrade. Stantec's completing the engineering, securing easements. This was one of those extensions that was going to tie in and create a loop and hopefully do away with some of those bleeds that we have out there that are just bleeding water out into the natural world. So
we're hopeful to get this project teed up and completed in the spring of 2024. On to the 2023 projects to date. CCI's public safety building. CCI is continuing to work through the pricing. They've built it out at 50% pricing at this point. We're still on budget. We have secured the bond. We got good word today, late this afternoon, for our bonds. We are looking at an interest rate of 3.65%. So that's positive, and we'll be receiving that money in the very near future. That'll keep the cash flow moving for the project, and we're meeting, I think it's Tuesday next week, one day next week, regarding the mobilization plan with the library trustees, staff, and we're hopeful to get this thing moving actually in August as opposed to September. I also received today, and I sent it over to you, Linda, I'm not sure if you saw it or not, updated stormwater plan for the front of the building for some consideration. We'll see what that looks like going forward.
Are we looking at as much energy efficiency as we can in this building? We did with the school, they used geothermal and they did some good insulation and stuff. We didn't do as much with the town hall. We didn't do as much with the library. I hope that we're transitioning back to trying to make this a 2030 building, not a 2000 building.
So we actually did receive recommendations through the Energy Committee. They had a contact who went through our project, looked at it. Couple of items that we feel that we can gain some efficiencies on. We're revisiting the radiant floor in the fire department apparatus bay. That was one of the items that was discussed. There were a couple other areas with different types of insulation. Those were contemplated. And that report was sent from the architect back off to their engineer. But at the end of the day, it's a very energy efficient building. It was interesting. A lot of the feedback, I found it really interesting, actually. A lot of the feedback received from the consultant was more along the lines of products that are more environmentally friendly.
Okay.
But based on the type of building, it doesn't make sense. Wood trusses in the apparatus bay doesn't really make sense. Increased insulation or different types of insulation, such as rock wool versus styrofoam or spray foam.
Yeah.
The problem is reduces the square footage of the building because of the size of the cavity compared to the spray foam, which is a minimal cavity. But that document should be back in their hands very shortly.
A little while back, we were talking about the potential to add solar to it going down the road. Is it something that they're designing it so that we might be able to use solar energy on top of it?
Yep. The building is designed to accept solar.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sewer extensions, we awarded the contract to Doskin Excavation. They're anticipating beginning in September. And again, we secured good bond funding for that with an attractive interest rate. So to date, we've encumbered $602,000 based on the contract. So that leaves us a balance of $394,000. Again, this is a bond. So we know that they're, number one, the way they bid this, it's based on square footage or linear feet. But we're going to run into some overages based on some identified issues. But the hopes are that we can bring this thing in well under budget and then actually go to the voters and see if we can repurpose some of these funds for some of our smaller pump stations, which are in horrible, horrible condition. We've got a total of, I think it's 9 sewer pump stations. We're doing the 2 big ones this year, and then we got 7 other ones that are small. Water main on South Main Street, I think I hit that twice, so we covered that. Fire truck lease, those monies have been encumbered, contract's been signed. Mill Street Pump Station, we covered that. Town road upgrades, obviously, the highway department's been busy over the past couple weeks with roads. We have awarded the contract for Trask Mountain, Upper Trask Mountain, Diamond Corner to G.W. Brooks. And then we're also doing a section of paving along Beach Pond Road, approximately 3,000 feet. We also hope to be able to reclaim and base pave certain sections of Pleasant Valley, mill and overlay the intersection of Pleasant Valley and South Main Street, and do engineering for Oak and River Street. That's prior to this past week's events, so we'll see what happens going forward. Steve's back there with his red marker. So Green Street, we've awarded the contract to Lyman. They're anticipated to start in late August, so we've got that done. The mini excavator is here. It's in service, being used regularly, and Barry will be coming to you, I believe, next Selectmen's meeting for a update on some of his electric capital projects. That summarizes the bulk of our projects. Anything I can try to answer for you?
The mini excavator looked nice in the parade.
That little tab associated with the electric boat, that's just wrong, right? The little comment about the
Yes.
electric boat, that's wrong, right? I'm just being clear on that.
Does they mean depot?
That's right,
read
it
that?
was, to see
It's-
if we
it's
were
too small
reading
a
them.
print,
I already
but-
talked to him earlier today.
See, it says
That's Mill Street.
Okay, I'm
That's Mill
There
Street,
it
right?
was, our
Yeah.
test.
Thank you very much, Jim, for getting that out to us.
No problem.
Next on the agenda, Sidewalk Capital Reserve Funds for $40,000.
We need some.
Steve Randall's here. He's going to come and ask you for some money.
Just some of them.
What a surprise.
Going to create a sidewalk. Gordon, I'm going to be close.
Good evening, Steve Randall, Public Works. Looking to access the Sidewalk Capital Reserve for $40,000 to start to do piecemeal upgrades throughout downtown.
Linda?
Will you just check to make sure we own them all?
Yes. The ones I've identified so far, we're in pretty good shape for.
These asphalt ones,
Both.
Well-
yeah, but the asphalt
Yep.
ones in particular, I don't know if any thought's been given to this. The asphalt ones that were done on, I think it's Mill Street,
Yeah.
were like stamped with brick. Is there any way to do that again in the future?
So what we're looking to do right now, one of the big sections that's really bad is from like the Meredith Bank up through in front of the inn. It's really just going to be an overlay
Okay.
for now to get us through until we do a real reconstruction on that. Then we're going to do some concrete ones down by the condos and down in that area. Now that has some stamped asphalt in it now, but the concrete all the way around it is not.
Okay,
So we're just kind of going to match what's there.
okay.
I have a concern about the concrete stamped, because if you look down by the condos, they had kind of bricks, and that's been by, I think our plowing or something has
Yeah.
taken it off, so we need to, if we do it, make sure it's something that's going to hold.
That kind of stamp doesn't really.
I don't
Not
think so.
here.
Yeah, I
It
don't think
just
so
doesn't.
either.
The stamps in the asphalt hold better than the concrete does, but for that section up there, I mean, I think if we going forward, we're going to redo a whole road, we're going to redo the sidewalks, I think we revisit stamping them, say Mill Street when we go to redo that.
Yep. Very good.
Yay, we're getting our sidewalks fixed.
Any other questions, or someone want to make a motion?
Brian?
Move to authorize expenditure of not more than $40,000 from the Sidewalk Capital Reserve Fund to the Public Works Department.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Luke. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
We have
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next on the agenda, Employee Appreciation Day.
So Amy would like to be able to close offices down for September 15th for Employee Appreciation Day. That would include town offices, solid waste facility, highway, water department, electric department. The library, that would be up to their discretion. Obviously, dispatch, police, fire would be welcome, but they are a 24/7, 365 operation, so they kind of come and go as it allows. But that's kind of what we're looking at for this year. This is about the same time frame that we do it every year.
Questions, comments from the board?
I have one comment. I think this is great. We need to thank them, but I also would like to send a thank you note to the town crew who came out on Sunday and got us through that storm. I really appreciate it. They worked long, hard hours to help us make it through. So I'm 100% in favor of this September, but I would like a letter, and I would like to see maybe we could sign them.
I think that's very appropriate. And I also like to maybe comment, we didn't talk about it a few minutes ago, that Steve pulled some strings there and was able to get a gravel pit to open up on Sunday afternoon and evening for us, so we could get gravel to keep our roads together as best we could anyway, and stuff. So, but it put us way ahead of the game by doing that. So thank you, Steve, and obviously thank the crew for all their hard work too. So.
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion that we have September 15th, 2022, Employee Appreciation Day, and close all the offices that were listed on this. And I guess it's the full day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read the offices for you, or you got them there?
You can read them.
Okay, the also the Wolfeboro Town Offices, Solid Waste Facility, Highway Department, Water Department, and Electric, all locations except Library, Central Dispatch, Police and Fire Emergency Services.
Second.
A motion by Linda, seconded by Brian. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Other business, do we have any other business to? Committee reports. Brian, we'll start down there.
Brian.
Committee report, you're going to talk about right now.
Yeah, but I had another business too. I'm going to have to think about that.
Okay.
We had a great EDC. Oh, that's what the other business was.
There you go, yes.
Yeah, we had a great EDC meeting, and the EDC made a motion. I was supposed to have that printed out. So the motion is that the EDC is going to support it's not GI Plastics, it's PSI Plastics, in the need for the town to facilitate a grant from Northern Boundaries in order for them to build a underground power line to install 2 new CC machines in their business and increase their workforce. So the EDC has gone forward to recommend that and to ask the Board of Selectmen if we will also adopt that motion and support them in their endeavor. It will be of no tax impact and no cost to the town of Wolfeboro. All we need to do is be the applicant for the grant, similar to what we're doing with Harriman Hill. So I was wondering if the board would entertain a motion to support PSI Plastics and the motion that the EDC made to help facilitate as the applicant a grant from Northern Borders for the construction of a power line.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
And I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Brian, seconded by Linda. Now, a question I have, is this time sensitive? In other words, the question, reason I'm asking is because should this come before us as a presentation like Harriman Hill did and stuff?
Yeah. So I've talked to Jim and Barry, and we need to have a meeting sooner rather than later because they have the opportunity to move to Ashland, Littleton, or other communities where they would get subsidies from the electric co-op or Unitil or Eversource. They're not asking for subsidies from us. They realize that they have a good electric rate from us, and they want to keep their business in town. But we need to help them expand if we can. And again, it will be no cost to the taxpayers in town.
Yeah, Linda?
The difference is they haven't even applied for the grant. And we're just saying if they apply for the grant, that the board is willing to support the grant similar to what happened with the government block grant.
Yep, okay.
It's different if they had it, then I think we would have to do what you're saying. But it's just that we support them going for it, and we want them in town, really, is I think.
Yeah, at the chamber, too, the owner, I think it was the owner that, or either the owner or the manager of the facility was there. And they're going to be inviting the Board of Selectmen to come do a tour of the facility and really talk about what their needs are and how much this could really impact Wolfeboro in the sense of how many jobs it'll create.
Okay.
And the infrastructure is on their property. And so that's why we need to help support them to get a grant.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, this, just so you know, this all came about because Joe Kenny, Executive Counselor Joe Kenny, reached out to me with a gentleman named Benoit Lamontagne. Benoit Lamontagne is the head of economic development and retention, business retention for the state of New Hampshire. And they came to me and said that PSI Plastics was having a concern that they needed the upgraded electrical infrastructure, and it needed to be done as quickly as possible. And we know government moves slowly, but they really wanted help facilitating it. So I started getting involved to help get Barry and Jim and Daniel at PSI and Mr. Lamontagne together so that we can all, figure this out.
Okay, any other discussion, comments? So a motion to if approve is the right word, but to support. To support the application for the grant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now continue on with your committee reports there, Brian.
Oh, then I had a energy committee meeting, and it was a very good meeting. We really are looking at expanding solar in the town at municipal buildings. That's been the concentration of what's going forward. We think there'll be energy savings, and because we're not always going to have 14 cents a kilowatt electricity in town.
Okay. Luke?
Chamber meeting, we did talk about, this is where the PSI plastic thing came up. Chamber social, a couple zoning board meetings. Yep, that's all I have to report.
Linda?
Yeah, I went to the Pop Whalen open house for donors. I've had 2 Friends of Pop Whalen meeting. I attended the library trustees meeting. Wolfeboro Waters met, and they are overseeing water and drainage for the Route 28 project, the public safety building. They talked about the issues that are going on in Jockey Cove. Our intern is doing the analysis of the water samples that we've collected, and we're doing the ongoing testing of the water for this season. Just as a side, on Monday, the Milfoil Committee had the dash unit back for the last day of this series to go back and pick up in the areas that they had done. When you pick once, you don't get it all, and so they went and cleaned up those areas. It only took one day. I went to the library reception for Allison Rutley, who's in the audience. I went to the Chamber Social and to the ribbon cutting for Eastern Propane. I had an EDC meeting, and I've brought some pictures which I'll pass around, but I am pleased to report that Albee Beach did well with the changes that we made in terms of the parking lot and having them go to different areas. Not perfect. It still had some runoff, but we were very lucky that that was done. And so anybody who wants to take a look at those pictures, we're pleased. So that's phase one. We still have phase two.
Thank you. I had a planning board meeting last night, pretty much a work session. The largest portion of that was a discussion with Wolfeboro Waters on proposed amendments to the stormwater regulations in the shorefront district. As Linda said, we had a Wolfeboro Waters meeting last week, and I had a Wolfeboro Community TV meeting this morning. So that was it for me. Dave?
Yeah, the only one I had was Conservation Commission meeting.
Okay. Town Manager's report?
Yeah, I just would like to echo what has already been stated. Department of Public Works, Water Sewer, Police Department, Dispatch, Municipal Electric, Fire Department. Thank you all for what you did over this past rainstorm, receiving literally 5.5 inches of rain in a 2-hour period. Kudos to you. Thank you for what you've done for the town. Also, thanks to the state for getting the South Main Street opened back up as quickly as they did. That was quite the mess, so greatly appreciated. Again, the bond, we've got an attractive rate for that. And just lastly, I'd like to introduce Allison Rutley, the librarian. Welcome, Allison, and we're excited to have you on board.
Yep, welcome.
That's it.
Thank you. Questions from the press?
Oh, I have one more other business, please. Just so everybody knows, everything's on schedule and looking good for Lake Winnipesaukee Day, the first inaugural Lake Winnipesaukee Day, which is August 11th from 5 to 10 p.m. We are going to have 7 major nonprofits, environmental nonprofits from around the state. We're going to have food trucks. We're having the Mount Washington as a floating restaurant and entertainment venue. We're having the Spirit there as a floating beer garden. Parks and Rec is going to have cornhole. We're having lots of activities, fun, excitement. So everybody come on down.
Laser light show?
Oh, yeah, and the laser light show. Thank you, Luke. From 9 to 10 o'clock at night, the second ever public laser light show in the state of New Hampshire. We did the first last year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What's the date again, Brian?
August 11th from 5 till 10 p.m.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Questions from the press? Is Alyssa still with us?
Yes, I am. This is a long meeting.
Yeah.
I want to echo what Jim was saying about for all the efforts to bring transportation moving again on Route 28 after the washout at Mink Brook. It was indeed a mess, and all along South Main Street, it's, you know, there's a lot more work to do. But I was just amazed at how quickly all that traffic was able to resume and Wolfeboro was open again. I appreciate everyone's work. That's it.
That's it? Okay, thank you, Alyssa. Public input. Some people have been sitting here a long time.
Bobby Bedman. The problem with sitting here a long time is then we have more to say at public input, so sorry. First, I want to say, echo everybody saying thank you to the road crews. I mean, Pleasant Valley Road just by itself. I mean, it was just up and running again, so pretty amazing. What did I want to say? Select Member Harriman, you read a letter about hunters at the beginning. Is there a way that can be posted on the website or somewhere where citizens can read that and see that, just because a lot of times it's really hard to hear you guys in here when you're speaking.
I think that's possible. We can do that.
If you guys want it there, I can put it there.
Yep.
Okay, 3 GSI Plastics, I just have a question about them increasing their production. Does that pollute our town in any way, their production, increasing their production? Do we have any type of runoff from there or anything that is going to cause a concern for citizens?
Not that I know of. I think they follow all the proper ISO guidelines, and they run a very, very good operation over there.
Okay. And then, Jim, is there a way you can get your the budget details that you laid out? Could you get that in email to the budget committee so we can see those guidelines also sooner than later?
They go to department heads tomorrow, and then you guys will get it in your packet for the August 3rd meeting, I think it is.
Okay. Is there a way to get it a little earlier? Because when we get the notes, it's just a few days before the meeting. If we can get that just a little bit earlier?
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Welcome. So nice to have you in town. We have needed you, so that's great. And then the reason why I actually came this evening, other than to listen to the budget stuff, is I don't know if any of you are aware about the baby safe haven laws that we have in our state. Probably not.
Not by our looks.
Because we have no signs all over our town. We don't have any signs saying that people have the right to surrender a baby if they're in crisis, that they have 7 days to surrender a baby. We don't have any notices. We don't have any signage anywhere. There is a wonderful box that they have. It's called a Safe Haven Baby Box Drop-Off, that people could anonymously drop their baby into a box. Most of them are put at fire departments because your fire department is always there. A lot of people will not surrender their babies to the hospital because then they lose some of their anonymity. We have a chance to be able to build one of these as one of the first boxes in New Hampshire as we build our new building. And so it would be great. I know the building is process is about to start, so it would be nice to look at this. I'm just going to plant the quick seed before we start building the building. I just handed Chief one of the little flyers, just little flyers I made up, but I'm not going to give you all the information on it right now. I'm just going to give you just the quick info, so maybe you can look into it before we start building the building. I'm sure we all heard the horrific story this winter of the baby that was born in the 18 degrees and wasn't surrendered because the mother in crisis was afraid to surrender the baby and didn't know where to surrender the baby. So we have a real chance to do something in our town, building our first responder building, and make an impact on a mother in crisis being able to surrender her baby, no questions asked. Our churches are closed at night. A mother couldn't surrender her baby at night. So this is something that I'd really, really like the board to consider as we build our new first responder building. Thanks.
Yeah, there was something that made national news about 7 days ago, and it was a Florida firefighter and his wife that had been trying for years to have a child, and they couldn't, and then a baby was surrendered at their fire department, and they ended up adopting that baby. So,
Okay. Suzanne.
Mr. Pino, you mentioned that well, first of all, the DPW have been working like worker bees. They're like fireflies all over Cotton Mountain and around town. And so today, my area got opened up, so I get the direct route. But you mentioned the road budget was depleted. How do you pay for this? Does insurance cover any? I'm sure there's overtime, and this is probably a big expense and not planned for in the budget. So how do we pay for all of that?
Tighten the purse strings.
What?
Tighten the purse strings. So, I mean, we have to watch our spending. I've already had a preliminary conversation with Steve. Next week, Steve's going to get me what his forecast of the expense of this storm is. And, you know, we've got some areas within our operating budget where we have some favorability. If we have to make line item adjustments, we'll bring those to the Board of Selectmen for consideration. But you're absolutely right. It's been an expensive year for storms, and you know, we're going to have to cut back on some items someplace. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, okay. You got to do what you got to do, you know.
When does damage like this hit a threshold where the state will assist you?
So that's not a very easy answer. They have to have a declaration. Once the declaration of an emergency is declared, it goes through a whole process, and literally it takes our emergency management team hundreds of hours to put together the documents to get 75% reimbursement, and it's usually 18 months before we see those funds.
The other thing is just a note is the two applicants for tables and chairs. The first one, the front floor sellers or whatever they are, I think Linda made the motion and you put a time frame, get you through the summer, 1 year. When Luke made the motion, he didn't put a time frame, so you might want to go back and...
I thought I said 12/31, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I think you did too.
You think he did?
I think I did say 12/31, but I'll go back and
Okay, just,
watch
you
it.
know, just don't
Yes.
didn't want you to get caught. And then the other thing is my favorite enterprise fund, Pop Whalen. I tried to catch what was being said about the status of the budget, where they are with that. It sounds like they're falling behind in revenue. So maybe at the next meeting, you can get a report on that as to what the year-to-date expenditures are, what the estimated expenditure was going to be, what the revenues are, because it sounds like they're falling behind, and their busiest time of the year has already gone by. So,
Well, actually, their busiest time is usually from September to December.
oh, okay.
So let's hope that they have
Yeah,
revenues.
well, it sounds like that there may be a shortfall there in the estimates. And then the other question to that is the bond. The bond went out for that, didn't it? Okay, and so is that included in the budget? Okay.
We've already made a payment on it this year.
The first year is principal only, the second year is principal and interest?
Interest only.
Or interest only, I got it backwards, okay. So the second year would...
Casey's coming forward, but my number contemplated the full payment.
Hi, I'm sorry, I would have directed it.
It depends when you take out the bond. So when you take it out in August, the next year, you have both principal and interest. If you take it out in January, you only have interest in the following
So
year.
what do we got with this one?
So in '23, you are realizing principal and interest for Pop Whalen. But for '23, you're not recognizing anything for the public safety building. That'll all be in '24.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know she was still sitting here. I didn't mean to ignore her. And then one last thing that caught my attention and is that the reevaluation of the town. And we're at, I thought you said 60%?
Yes.
And they like us to be close to the 100%. So we're going to be looking, when they come around and reassess us, our values on our homes. I know they like to say a third goes up, a third goes down, a third stays the same. Well, it depends which third you are, but I've never been in one that it didn't go up. So, people better, I would hope people like tune in this year with the budget and the reassessment coming up, because it's getting expensive to live in Wolfeboro. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Any other public input? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go into non-public.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Dave, seconded by Linda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.